Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I'm Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. Today, by popular demand, we're going over the best VR co-op games of all time as of January 2025. Now this list is not only great for new VR players, but for the OG VR gamers out there, I also have some nice hidden gems. Now there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by my long-term sponsor, Kiwi Design. If you're looking to make your Quest headset much more comfortable, or you want a top-of-the-line battery pack for up to 3 hours of extra gameplay, well then I highly recommend their brand new K4 Boost head straps. It's now available in both traditional and Halo strap versions, and not only are they cheaper than what Meta has to offer, they're also way more comfortable with some extra plush material. There's a link to Kiwi down in the description, and don't forget to use discount code Mateo311 for 5% off and to help support my channel. Now I've divided this video up by genre, and I'll also make sure to mention the game's platform and if it still has an active player base. So let's dive into some shooters, starting with After the Fall. This is basically VR's version of Left 4 Dead with a little bit of a twist. Instead of your typical post-apocalyptic zombie world, the earth is frozen over, and now you're fighting zombie-like creatures called the Snowbreed. Now this is easily some of the best all-person co-op shooter action you'll get in VR, and the massive amount of weapon upgrades and unlockable cosmetics will keep you constantly coming back for more action. While this is a bit of an older title, the player base is still decently active, so you shouldn't be forced to bring your own friends along, and there'll be a bunch of online games to join. But if you find zombies in VR completely overdone, why not go on a bug hunt with Starship Troopers Continuum? The entire story-driven campaign is playable in 3-person co-op, and this title features a truly unique and massive leveling system that not only feels rewarding, but drastically changes up the overall gameplay. Now surprisingly, for such a new title, it doesn't have a very active player base. So if you're on the Meta Quest, I recommend you take advantage of their 2-hour trial period, test the game out, and if it's your style, try and recruit 2 friends to join you in the action. But if you're like me and 2 friends is just way more than you have, we could jump back to the classic zombie shooter that started it all, Arizona Sunshine. The original title from back in 2016, which was way ahead of its time, recently received a full remake, and it's definitely worth trying out, especially with a buddy. It features an excellent co-op campaign filled with plenty of action. It also doesn't take itself too seriously, leaning more into the humor side quite often. Overall, this is a staple VR title that everyone should at least try in either single player or co-op. And after you finish playing through this game and absolutely love it, it's time to move on to the sequel, which gives you your very own dog companion. Arizona Sunshine 2 is basically more of the same, but the title doubled down on everything that made the original great. There's plenty more witty quips from the protagonist, the storyline's a lot more meaningful and emotionally engaging, and there's a lot more blood and guts to enjoy as you mow down enemies with plenty of new weapons. And speaking of new weapons, the roguelite mech shooter Big Shots definitely throws some unique ones your way. This is yet another bug hunt, but instead of getting a single player campaign with a buddy, this is a roguelite wave shooter with some fairly strategic elements. You need to frequently switch between weapons, as some become more effective against certain enemies, and you also need to learn how to best utilize your power-ups and jump jets. Now, like most roguelites, the game does get a bit grindy and repetitive, but I love the overall art style, mechanics, and all of the unlockables will encourage you to keep coming back. But if shooters just aren't for you, let's move into one of my favorite genres, the RPG/dungeon crawler. There's some absolutely fantastic games here, and let's start with one of the best ones, Dungeons of Eternity. In Dungeons of Eternity, you and up to 2 of your buddies can go on some truly unique dungeon crawls, level up, find some awesome loot, and then take on bigger and better challenges. It's an absolutely addictive gameplay loop, made even better by excellent combat mechanics. The melee is physics-based, so you really feel that impact. You could also take down enemies at range with a bow and arrow or some spells, and the title definitely scratches that RPG leveling itch. Now there's a very similar and even darker themed game available for PCVR and PlayStation VR2 owners. Legendary Tales is very similar to Dungeons of Eternity, but it has a much more mature theme and pushes things like mechanics, leveling, and graphics much further. Not only does it have some of the best physics-based combat in a VR title, it also has an epic leveling system that offers up a massive amount of character customization. You could build a glass cannon mage, super tanky warrior, a rogue-style character that focuses on critical hits, and even some more unique playstyles, or a combination of any of these elements. There's also a massive world and campaign to explore, so for the RPG lovers out there, I highly recommend this game. And on the same note, I have a much older RPG game that's worth checking out if you have a bunch of friends that are willing to join you. There's no longer a player base as this game dropped back in 2020, but it was way ahead of its time and almost falls in the middle ground between Legendary Tales and Dungeons of Eternity. The RPG elements are much more simplistic, and when you play this in co-op with a bunch of friends, it does feel a lot more like a hack and slash title, but this is an epic fantasy journey that did not get the respect it deserves, and I would even recommend this game in single player if you don't have the friends to bring along. And finally, we have another staple title that doesn't exactly fit in the RPG or dungeon crawler genre because it's primarily a tabletop experience, but that doesn't stop it from being pretty damn epic. Demeo is an extremely strategic, turn-based tabletop experience. You get to pick from a wide array of unique characters, join 3 of your buddies online or even in the same space for the true-to-life tabletop experience, and then battle through 2 levels of non-stop enemies, followed by a unique epic boss fight. There's multiple different adventures that follow a similar gameplay loop, but all have their own unique twists, traps, enemies, and big bad to take down. This is a must-play for any tabletop RPG fan out there, but just don't let people convince you that this is Dungeons & Dragons in VR. Now next up, we have the survival genre, which is admittedly not one of my favorites, but I still enjoyed each and every one of these games. If you're looking for something a little bit more wholesome, I would check out Medieval Dynasty New Settlement, which recently introduced the co-op mode. Now while it does feature a campaign, which has you starting a whole new life in a nearby village, starting with absolutely nothing, and if it all goes well, ending with an epic dynasty. Just like any other survival title, it features mechanics that have you gathering supplies, then building tools and structures. Now the overall concept there sounds like work to me and not play, but in practice it felt truly rewarding. Your first hut, animal kill, and cool new tool all end up feeling like something to celebrate about. But if you want some more action in your survival title and can handle a bit of horror, there's nothing quite like The Forest. This is a much older flat game that was ported to VR, so you're gonna need to bring some friends along for this one, but trust me, you'll be glad you did after you encounter your first mutant. Unfortunately for you, you've crash landed on an island, lost your child in the process, and now while you're just working to survive, creatures will come out and start hunting you at night. Now this title could be borderline terrifying at times, and it's also mature themed, bloody, gritty, and pretty damn challenging, especially if you find yourself alone. As someone who admittedly doesn't really enjoy the survival genre, I was surprised to find myself sucked into this title for hours on end. Now another similar title that recently got a co-op mode is Green Hell. Unlike The Forest, this features much more of a single-player campaign. Instead of mutants, you'll be dealing with the indigenous population and exotic animal life of the Amazon rainforest, and the survival elements are much less forgiving. Things such as food, clean water, and shelter are going to be a major struggle. I still highly recommend it to all survival fans though. But if you prefer a more straightforward fighting title, let's jump right into Path of the Warrior. Imagine a classic beat-em-up title like Double Dragon was turned into a first-person experience. That's Path of the Warrior in a nutshell. The cartoon graphics look surprisingly great in VR, the combat's fun, the game's filled with plenty of action, and it's a great experience to jump in with a buddy. Don't go in expecting a AAA title, but if you're like me and grew up on games like Streets of Rage, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one. But why would you want to fight some corny cartoon enemies when you could battle legions of demons in Hellsweeper? You'll be battling across 18 different maps, with now up to 2 buddies, since they recently expanded co-op to 3 players, and you'll be battling it out in a high-intensity hellscape filled with plenty of demons, gesture-based spells, and some badass backflips. This is easily one of the most robust and rewarding roguelikes out there, and the skills that you unlock over time are gonna make you feel like a complete badass. Now I'm yet to test out the 3-person co-op, but if you have, let me know what you think down in the comments. Now I'm going to round this video out with some outliers. Games that tend to break the mold or don't truly fit in one specific genre. The first is the truly unique co-op puzzler, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Now you will definitely need some real life friends for this one, but trust me, it's worth it. One person will be jumping in the VR, while everyone else gets bomb defusal instructions. That VR gamer will be looking at a briefcase bomb, and they need to explain everything they're looking at in detail to their bomb defusal team. Now this might sound simple enough, but the game is designed to trick you up, and it ends up being a hilariously fun race against the clock that also tends to devolve into some good old-fashioned arguments. So if you actually have some IRL friends, or you're looking for a party-style game, put this on your list and thank me later. Now another game that won't be contained by traditional genres is the 4-person ghost hunting experience Phasmophobia. The game plays out kind of like one of those cheesy ghost hunting TV shows, except here there's actually some ghosts and real action. While you're trying to find clues and figure out what type of spirit you're dealing with, these creatures are also slowly stalking you, bringing you closer and closer to the point of insanity, and in worst case scenario, actually snatching the life right from you. This is easily the most fun I've ever had while being absolutely terrified. Now if you're able to make it out alive, you will earn some money, which you could use to get bigger and better ghost hunting equipment. So this is 10 out of 10, I highly recommend. And another easy recommendation is No Man's Sky, but I'll definitely put an asterisk on this one because it's not really a co-op game. I'm sure many people are already aware of the epic turnaround story that was the original flat No Man's Sky. It launched with some serious disappointment, but only got better and better over the years, eventually becoming a top tier title. While there is some excellent co-op gameplay you can experience, that doesn't happen until later in the title, so don't fire up this game expecting to immediately join your buddies and go on a spacefaring adventure. Now I'm going to end this video on an absolutely amazing game that doesn't have co-op just yet, but it's coming in a future update. The roguelike mech fighter Underdogs is easily one of my favorite roguelike experiences, as it's dripping with style and features some absolutely fantastic physics-based combat. Every collision feels amazing, and punting enemies across the arena never gets old. I can't wait to jump into New Braca with a buddy and team up on everything from the roaches to much bigger mechs. And that right there, guys, was today's list. If you think I left out any great recommendations or you have any additional questions, please let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And as always, I'll see you guys on next time.